All right, Sam. So moving on to number six. What have you got?
I like this character because he reminds me of one of my favorite film characters of all time. And as soon as I say this name, you're gonna know who it is. He reminds me of Gimli, and he's just so much fun to play. And he's really one of the best tanks in the game, and that's a lot coming from me because he's the tank that made me want to tank. And my number six is Murden, and I think he's one of the strongest heroes um, in in the game. I think he's always kind of a go-to pick for a lot of people, whether you're new to the game or an advanced player. Murden has uses for everybody. So the tank that made me want to tank is Murden, and I love him.
I'd just like to point out that we have it on a recording that Sam is a racist who thinks all dwarfs look the same.
No, he sounds the same too.
Not better.
I'm also a dwarf racist, apparently.
Also, I have to agree. It was actually kind of heartbreaking to cut Muradin from my list. I wanted to have him in there, but Medivh just took that number 10 slot. But I have always had a soft spot in my heart for Muradin, mainly because his his baseline kit is just so beefy that it lets me just build damage on a tank and still be really tanky. It's great.
And how happy were we when Give Him the Axe was moved to 7?
Oh my god. Oh my god. I don't think any remake thus far or rework has really excited me that much. Just for the like that moment where I read, wait a minute, where's Give Him the Axe? Just I immediately had to boot it up and just start playing Muradin in preparation.
Murden is a character that I had avoided for a long time because I don't really care too much about like the whole dwarf thing. Like I didn't see anything that was that exciting like thematically. But when you get him into your hands and you really, play that character, it just felt ridiculous. Like I could stun people. I had huge mobility by just jumping around. I could kind of wave clear with my W. Kind of put out very respectable damage. I could just leave a team fight for like 5 seconds and then come back with full health. It was absurd. I felt like I was invincible, and that's something that you really, I think, can appreciate in a hero.
This Murden really taught me how to tank. And I'm still really learning how to tank, but he could rush in, do a bunch of damage, help out his team by soaking up a lot of damage, and then just leap out. He can leap in, leap out, and his health pool, like Aiden said, like he can do a pretty decent amount of damage and still have that really beefy health pool that you need in a tank. And it's just he's a bruiser without having the lower health pool of a bruiser, and it's truly great. And I enjoy playing him every time, even when I watch Aiden miss so many cues.
Shut. I don't miss that many goddamn cues.
Yes,
It
you
was just
do.
one game, like months ago. I think I missed two, and it never stopped. It's just Aiden misses cues forever.
No, I'm pretty sure you miss
I
those two
hate you.
cues every game you play Meriden.
I
Like,
am not fond of you. But one thing about Murden that I think actually needs to be mentioned, and is kind of an underrated aspect of him, is just the fact that he's one of the like original heroes. He's from so long ago, but he's still so relevant now, which is great. It's a great philosophy to have coming from Blizzard to keep these heroes in a position where they can still be used and still be very good. Like we exist in a time where Garrosh is in the meta and people still take Muradin because he's still very good. Like that's great that they're not just being just basically pushed out of vogue by new heroes being introduced.
Well, Garrosh got cut off at the knees if you hadn't seen the
I
recent
have,
update,
yes.
but yeah, that might shake things up a little bit, but we'll see. Yeah. So Aiden, why don't you tell us about your number six?
Well, he's the cutest damn hero in the Nexus. He's technically a specialist, but we all know he's secretly an assassin in disguise. Of course, I'm talking about my little buddy Murky. I love this fish so much. I think you guys know every time I play Murky, I just can't stop just cackling every time I get a kill on anyone who's remotely relevant in the game. It's so funny to be a stupid little baby fish who respawns after like 4 seconds, killing full-fledged heroes like it was nothing.
Yeah, I was playing the aspect of justice Tyrael, attempting to ward off this small fish creature from destroying my fortifications, and it just didn't matter. Anything I did could not deal enough damage to outweigh its self-healing, and it just kept sliming me, and I feel like I have PTSD because I just felt so ineffectual in the face of this baby fish.
And also, March of the Murlocs is the effing worst.
Oh my god.
Like,
That level 20 spike where you can just channel March of the Murlocs forever. I will always forever find a spot where I can just channel it and when people maybe won't notice and I'll just hit buildings with it for like an hour.
if you can learn Murky, like, Aiden's giddy joy when he plays this character is apparent. And, like, obviously, if you don't know how to use Murky, it's going to be, I think it is kind of a challenge to learn how to play him properly. But, yeah, it's definitely great to have him on your team. And it's just the most annoying thing to play against him, because if you ignore him, he's just going to push your lanes down. But if you try and go and address him with only one hero, then he can honestly hold his ground and sometimes even win trades. So it's kind of this catch-22. Do you ignore him and let him push, or do you try and take him on with only one or two people and not end up being that effective? Like, it's just, it leaves you in a horrible place when you're playing against him.
Every single time I play Murky, once level 16 rolls around, it comes to the point where the enemy team just starts dropping ults on me because they have to stop this murderous little fish. Once your auto attacks trigger slime, you oh my god, you just can't be stopped. He becomes an assassin at that point. He spikes in damage so hard, so ridiculously. It's insane.
I love the fact that when he's channeling March of the Murlocs, it doesn't technically hit everything and everyone within its area of effect. You could, if you want and are able to, play that like bullet hell mini game where you
Yeah.
try and dodge all these tiny fish before they latch onto you. So it's again one of those things where it's just barely escapable enough that you feel bad for getting hit, but not really escapable enough that you can just avoid it.
I've absolutely seen people try to escape or dodge fish and just do really poorly at it and they just end up running into more fish and it's such a joyous experience every time.
Yeah, and I love the like kind of lore about him is that like he's seeking vengeance for all the WoW characters that have been killing his species and his gross Murloc villages for all time. I love the little lines with Alrak where he's like, "Ah, I like you, fish creature," and with Malthael who says stuff like, "Ah, you understand my great work," and then other characters like Alexstrasza are trying to teach him, "No, this violence is not the answer. It's a baby fish."
The baby fish who hits people with an even smaller fish.
He's even annoying on other platforms, like Murloc deck builds in Hearthstone are also the most annoying thing. So,
There's also a Murloc shaman like skin or whatever you want to call it, like hero unlock in Hearthstone as well.
it's just, he does his job very well. If his job is to pester a team into, like, curling up into the fetal position and giving up, then yes, he's a great hero.
So, speaking of kind of underappreciated, not correctly feared, goofy specialists, my number 6 shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that this character is on my list because I love playing the Lost Vikings. The Lost Vikings are a character from way back, a Blizzard game that I played before I knew what Blizzard was. I was just playing this weird game on my computer from like a floppy disk. was just like a weird kind of puzzle game trying to move these characters around that had different abilities. The humor was very strange, very hit and miss. So I was just shocked when I saw, I'm like, okay, Blizzard's Heroes of the Storm, like their stab at the MOBA. They they brought in the Lost Vikings. I'm like, okay, I guess they found a place for them. Uh, and yeah, the thing about the Lost Vikings is it fulfills like both kind of the goofy fun and the nostalgia for me. My love of getting XP and soaking lanes. But he also does something for me that I like that's like a weird kind of aspect in other games that I enjoy, and it's gonna sound strange to you, but I like playing kind of rhythm games or like top-down shooters like shmups because they require such a level of focus that kind of everything else disappears. And you guys know from when I play the Lost Vikings that a lot of the time I have no idea what's going on with the rest of the game. I'm just so focused on trying to micro these characters around and having them constantly do something useful and trying to protect them and trying to push that you'll have to say, Kevin, the objective's up.
I absolutely love playing with you when you play the Vikings. Because for the same reason where you're saying, you kind of zero in and forget everything else that's happening, I forget you exist until I realize you've got 200k siege damage and we're winning the game. Because you've managed to play 3-lane Vikings, and they're just so useful. I know that they can really go south when you don't play that way, when you try and put them all in one lane and do whatever like that. But the way you play them, there's definitely like this rhythm to it, and you don't really notice that you're there, but you do when you end up with 3 of their towers down, and I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, the thing is like everybody just wants to play heroes a lot of the time. Like, everybody rushes mid for the big fight and they stay there too long. They don't get to their lanes in time. At least in the leagues that I play in. I play in gold right now. And playing the Vikings allows everybody else to just kind of do that, to just focus on, hard pushing one lane or like roaming around ganking. Because it's like soaking the lanes, I'll take care of that. Getting the merc camps, don't worry about it. Go grabbing tributes way off in the corner, or getting seeds from the terror. I'll just send one Viking. I'll go take care of that. And then I don't even have to be bored with it because I just send Eric the Red to go run over and do it. While my other characters are like doing something useful, more closer to the front lines.
I like it when you play Vikings because it's the only time I don't have to listen to you telling us to go get XP.
I was just gonna say that. Yup.
Well, if you would just learn, then I wouldn't have to do it.
No.
Okay, so moving up to the top half of our list, we're getting to number 5. Sam, what is your number 5?
Surprisingly, for this one, somebody has her higher than me, and I'm really sad because I want to talk about this character so much, but somebody has her higher than me, so I have to pass.
That is me. This is probably one of, if not the most unique hero in Heroes of the Storm. Really it's one of the heroes that really confirmed that Blizzard was okay with just accepting heroes as the weird MOBA, quote unquote, and really pushing the envelope and putting in heroes that you just don't see in other MOBAs. Of course, I'm talking about our favorite two-headed ogre, Cho'Gall, or specifically Gall if I have to choose one head. But I love Cho'Gall because what other game or MOBA specifically can you find a hero that is required to be played by 2 people?
I'm so glad that you put him on your list because he was on my initial short list. I was sure he was going to be in my top 10, and I just could not find the room, which I guess makes sense for a massive ogre.
Heyo. The uniqueness factor really, like, you can use him as almost like a selling point for heroes. Someone asks you like, "Oh, what sets heroes apart from League of Legends?" Well, have I told you about Abathur, or have I told you about Cho'Gall, who needs to be controlled by 2 people, and it's incredible?
I think you definitely have a point for the uniqueness of him and how much fun it could be to play together casually. But I see I have to disagree with both of you here because I think there's a reason his pick rate is so low. Um, he is fun to play, but when it comes down to playing ranked, I would never pick him. I would never want him in a ranked game. But I do see that he's really fun and really unique and brings something different to the table. But I wouldn't, if I was trying to be a tryhard and playing ranked, I would never pick him.
I think I would love to see him in ranked in a situation where, like your team picks first, so you have a double pick as your last pick, and the enemy team has picked 4 heroes already, and they don't have like percentage health damage or like the whack load of damage you would need to take them down. You can just come out of left field with a Cho'Gall pick. He screws enemy teams if you haven't planned for him. And Gaul specifically is just such a powerful mage. You forget how strong Gaul is, but like he's got like a 3 second cooldown on his really strong Q. He contributes hella damage.
Yeah, and further to your point about like um, using Cho'Gall as a selling point, he can also be a really great teaching tool. Like someone doesn't know how to play heroes, doesn't know where to go, doesn't know the objective timing, doesn't understand about soaking, doesn't know when to go in, doesn't know when to leave. Just be like, all right, you know what? Just buddy up with me. Play Gull. I'll play Cho. I'll show you the ropes. And I think that that's like a tremendously valuable thing to have in the game. To
Very
be able to
true.
have this character who can be a teaching tool and can also be a terrifying force on the battlefield.
I actually I never thought about him that way, but it's true. He would be a really great teaching tool. I've tried being the one who shoots, so Gaul, I believe, and it was a lot of fun because I didn't have to worry about when to go in. And I think for people like me who aren't, are still at bronze silver level, it is good to kind of have that weight off your shoulders of having to decide when to go in and stuff like that. So for newer players, I think you're right. I think it's good training wheels, but again, I make my point again about ranked. And I think he does have to be super powerful because there is that one downside of taking a player off the field.
I mean, also they've in more recent updates, he got the semi rework that made him even require even more coordination between the people who are using him. So like he used to just be kind of like a fire and forget. Like okay, this is gonna be weird, but he's a big beefy beef castle, and time to have some fun. But now like you need to coordinate. Like, do we keep up the armor? Do we put on the damage buff? So people were already allergic to the complexity he had before. So now it's just no one wants to play him, and I get it, but it makes me sad because we talked about briefly Hanzo's level 20 power spike, but I would argue that Gaul's level 20 power spike is probably the most significant in the game.
But it is a downside that you almost need to be on comms for him to be fully effective. So you can't go into Hero League, let's say, playing by yourself and have someone else pick Cho or Gaul and be truly effective unless you're on comms. At least to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's something
Now
that
especially.
when if they eventually bring in the in-game voice comm system, that'll be a big buff to Cho'Gall because he just doesn't appear that often, especially in ranked. So that'll be a big buff for him as well. My number 5. We talked a lot about how characters kind of fulfill like their fantasy, right? And my number 5 definitely does that for me. We mentioned, Butcher. It's terrifying when you hear that charge being sent your way. The character that I have at number 5 has a similar kind of impact, but you hear him before you see him. You're just minding your own business, pushing a lane, when you start to hear this slow build, this this sound that gradually develops into a shriek as this wild animal bursts from the bushes and chases after you with crazy fast move speed, and then grabs you and drags you back into its clutches. Uh, my number 5 is Dahaka.
Oh, you stole my Dahaka pick.
Yeah, I stole your Dahaka pick. I don't get to play Dahaka as often as I'd like. I'm not as amazing with Dahaka as I'd like to be, but I really appreciate what Dahaka brings to the table. Yeah, he's just this great like ambush character that uh, can also just be a very respectable kind of normal warrior. Um, and if you can spec him the right way, then he's just basically immortal with multiple health bars, kind of like a diva. Or you can spec him just to just gank people all day, um, using isolation as your heroic, which it doesn't look like too much when you are the one using it, but when you're the one receiving isolation, it is just miserable. You can't see anything, and you're just stumbling around in the darkness, uh, not knowing where you're going, where your team is, what's hitting you in the face while you're dying. Dahaka is just tremendously fun to play.
On the subject of his ults, I think that's part of the reason he's a little bit lower for me. He's one of my favorite tanks, and I love him. And I don't care what you say, I'll fight you. He is a solo tank. I solo tank with him all the time. It's great.
Sure.
But his adaptation, I think, is the
Yeah,
other
that's the
ult.
one.
Yeah, I just it's weird to make use of in that it heals you for the damage that you take over a 4 second period, but like, what if you just die? Or what if they just don't damage you over this period? Versus the immediacy of like, whoopsie daisy, you're slowed and silenced and you can't see anything and you have a weird looking thing on your head. Like, the choice is obvious for me. I love the guy, but like, I struggle to make adaptation work well enough to justify taking it over like a really, really game changing silence and slow.
Yeah, I'm not a tank person, and Dahaka has never really jumped off the page for me in terms of somebody I'd want to play, but I have so much respect for his global ability. Like, just be able to go from, top lane to bottom lane to help your team or to capture a point. Like, so many times when I've played Braxis or particularly Dragonshire, his global ability is just devastating, and he always, if you play him well, is where he needs to be all the time.
Yeah, and I think he's got that kind of versatility that you're looking for. Because again, you can just use him for that global, like to get to the objective, or to do that side soaking. You can play him as a tank and just have him take a whole bunch of damage, you know, pop his E to go hide, use adaptation to get back to full health, or his trait as well, just to give you another healing over time boost. Um, or you can play the race car Dahaka build, which is my personal favorite. Which
Oh my god, I love Tokyo drifting everywhere as the Haka.
it's so ridiculous. It's Sam, if you're not familiar, there's a talent where when you uh, duck in and out of um, uh, the fog like brushes, like the brush, you increase your move speed and you can increase it to pretty much crazy levels where you're just normally Dahaka can't mount, so we have to lumber around everywhere. He always shows up late to that fight in mid. But if you just, slowly just kind of dip in and out of the brush, he could just zoom around the map, uh, like as if he was mounted, or even faster. It's hysterical.
He's once you fully upgrade it, I think his speed is comparable to someone on a mount. It might be pretty much even.
It might just be that it feels so fast compared to his normal move speed, which, when other people are mounted and running around, just feels really punishingly slow. But yeah,
I mean,
Dahaka
I
for me.
tried to test it the other night, but I was too busy making race car noises.
Yeah, he is one of those ones where I've mentioned my little list before for 2018, helping me branch out into different heroes, and Dahaka keeps coming up to me as one I should have on that list. Of not only because I think he'd be useful to learn, and obviously have a race car build that would be fun to play, but he's just an all around good tank to have in your arsenal. Just for all the things that we previously stated.
Yeah, he's a great bruiser slash tank, if you force me to call him that,
Solo.
or off tank, I guess. And
Or a
he
solo tech.
really he's got a lot of depth because there's so many things you can do with him, and you can really master that character. All right, so moving up to number 4, Sam, what have you got?
This was kind of my first love of heroes. I have been playing since the beta, and she was one of the heroes that I learned on. And I think one of my favorite things about her is that she seems so straightforward, but she can really do a lot of damage, and especially if you can stutter step, she can be used by anyone from a beginner to an advanced player, and that's Vala. I absolutely love her, and she's one of those ones where I can pick a different build and feel just as confident in it as I would if I pick her Q build over her auto attack build or something like that. I think she's a really versatile character, but also she's just dependable, and that we see her being really popular in pro play right now, especially in the HGC of this year. Vala kind of can go between this kind of like weird assassin but also be a specialist because she can do a crap ton of siege damage and get a lot of XP. So I love her for nostalgia reasons, but I also think she's one of the most straightforward, versatile assassins in the game.
Vala is just always rock solid. Like, definitely a key character in competitive play for a reason. Going up against Vala, I'm shocked every time because I just die. I just die all the time because I don't give her enough respect. Because the damage she can pump out is just heinous, and you can get caught off guard by her vault. Even though it's like very simple, very straightforward, you know she has it. It's just I get caught out all the time, and I try and trade into her, and I'm blown away by the damage that she can put out on a pretty much consistent basis. And I can see why she's just a knife, in the right hands. She just will just drive forward and do what she needs to do. She is the quintessential assassin to me.
She kind of strikes me as, at the very least, I like to think of her as kind of like the step up, slightly more advanced version of Raynor, who has more like overall utility. Like Raynor is the basic auto attack, gonna do a lot of damage but do nothing this whole game sort of dude. And then you get the next level, kind of like the Charmeleon to Raynor's Charmander, of Vala, who still, she can sit there and like do a bunch of damage, and you don't have to do anything for her to do a bunch of damage. But also, you can vault around and blast dudes with your W and fire your Q at people, and like she has a much more dynamic presence than Raynor. She's again another example of like a basic, old school from pretty much the beginning character who is still hugely relevant. And I literally cannot lane against her as Murky, so I hate her.
Yeah, and you'll notice that kind of trend with a lot of the characters that I pick. It's those, OG heroes that are still relevant, because that's ultimately, to me, the true test of a well-balanced good hero is can they stand the test of time, and she can. I mean, her E alone, I mean, you can there's a talent tier where her E refreshes her Q, and the amount of times where I can just Q someone and then they think they're going to get away, I E forward, and then hit them with that Q again to get the kill beyond the wall, and or you can lane with her W, or stack that auto attack damage that gets crazy. And again, because she is rather straightforward, a lot of people don't take her seriously to their detriment. And to me, still, she has layers to her. Like you said, like she can be basic like Raynor, but in the right hands, a person who can stutter step with her and play her really well is just, and that's why the pros still play her. So to me, I had a hard time not putting her higher on this list, but she's definitely one of my favorites and will remain one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I love the fact that she's just like her personality, like she's just kind of like so dark and violent, but like kind of credible and not angsty like a Sylvanas.
She doubles as a hero I would love to cosplay someday.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, like, it's hard to knock someone who's literally double fisting crossbows.
Apparently Hanzo has some dialogue where he calls them like children's toys or something. All right, so number 4 with Aiden. What have you got?
Well, you know what? I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. I'm just gonna say, hell, it's about time. I think we all know that I'm talking about Tychus, my man, my bae, the Tyche.
You mean Chubby Vala?
Yes, chubby Vala with a giant gun. I love this man so much. For even if I'd never played the game and I just listened to him talk all day, it would be worth it.
Yep, and I recently got him the announcer for him in a loot chest, and he now is my announcer for everything.
He is a fantastic announcer, and he has special dialogue when he is the announcer and the hero that you choose. Something along the lines of, "Now I gotta fight and be the announcer." That's some BS. Like it's great. He's so flavorful and sassy and fun. And then also, whoopsie daisy, I did all the damage in the world. Goodbye, all your tanks.
It's just really distressing as a tank to watch your health just melt. Because if you're facing like a Malthael or something, or like a Leoric who's kind of designed to do that percent damage, like you know when it's happening and you know how to like get away from it. With Tychus, you just sort of see your health going down. You're like, what is happening? And you're like, oh, minigun is active, and Tychus is somewhere in the vicinity.
Plus, when you're playing him, you get that really wonderful. I mean, if you build him correctly and you're building his minigun, because oh my god, why would you never build his minigun quest? You get that really, really satisfying, just constant ringing of stacking your quest as you're shooting people. So you just plant your feet, spin up the gun, and just listen to ding a ling 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 for like 4 seconds to start, or whatever his default duration is.
Okay,
Extended to like 12 seconds.
apparently I need to play more Tychus because that's my drug.
I was actually just gonna say that too. It's like a rat. It's like a rat pushing a button for a pellet and getting a pellet every time. Like I think we're just conditioned to love that sound.
I actually insist that next game we play, you play Tychus, just so you can listen to it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, not only is it really, really, really great to listen to, it also means that the enemy team is letting you do exactly what you want to do.
Which is chew them up with a projectile weapon.
Literally stand still and right click on someone. Like, he's the cool version of Raynor. He has a cigar. He's kind of like, he's back sass, you know?
Hey, he doesn't
He'll
have a
plant his
cigar
feet and
anymore.
shoot someone. No.
They
no.
removed the cigar.
Darn SJWs.
He's too cool for school.
See, I liken a lot of these characters to people from movies that they remind me of. And for Tychus, it's always that general guy from what's that movie with the blue people? Avatar.
Oh my god, are you... Oh,
And but the evil general guy, he just that's him to me. I don't know. I'm weird like that. I make weird parallels like that, and that's just who he reminds me of. Except he's cooler than that guy.
You need to play the original game, StarCraft 2, because he's cool as a cucumber, right? He does not care about you and your priorities. He's looking out for number one, and he seems like a cool dude to like. What do the kids say? Like slam back some brews with.
Stop. It's crack open a cold one, by the way. But stop. You old man.
Oh.
But if we're likening Tychus to people from other media, I'm actually going to keep in the video game realm here because he reminds me of Doom Guy from Doom. Not only because, you know, he has the giant Space Marine suit, but he keeps his cool and just mows down hordes with abandon.
The thing I find interesting about him is that he's a bit like oh goodness, what's the Valkyrie's name?
What?
The Amazon, sorry.
Oh, Cassia.
Cassia, yes, thank you. Where he's just like basic. He's barely a ranged character, barely a ranged assassin, especially after they reduced his auto attack range so significantly, is that he can just be so infuriatingly out of reach if you're a warrior. If you're playing like Diablo or something, you're trying to chase after him, and he's just able to kite you, using his Q.
And I mean, really, let's be honest. If you're running into Tychus's face, your plan is flawed from the get go.
All right, so my number 4 is a more refined sort of marksman, at least most of the time. He'll hang back and he'll pepper you with a few shots. He might even offer you a cocktail or two. But when the moment is right, he will leap at you and tear you apart like a bestial frenzy. My number 4 is Greymane. Another really like standard top tier ranged assassin that gets played a ton in the HGC, and for very good reason, because he's kind of got it all right. Just as an assassin, like he can stay back and he can poke and he can do a tremendous job and do a lot of damage, very respectable damage there. But when it's time to go in, he can just dive and pop his W, start dealing tons of damage, start tearing people up with his Q. And that's just tremendously fun for me. The fact that one of his ults is just basically you get to E on someone again is hysterical to me, because it's that good and it's that fun that just giving him his E again as a heroic is viable.
Honestly, the damage on his swipe and Worgen form always catches me off guard. It just blows people the hell up. It's insane.
Yeah, and his other ult, his Cursed Bullet, just from ranged, boom, 30% of your health gone, shocks people a lot too. He's got sustained damage, he's got range damage. I really love that his cocktail has that kind of unique aspect to it, where it's like it's not just a Hanzo Q skill shot where you just have to point and shoot
calling
from
him
a thing.
out. Wow.
Yeah, well, you know my feelings about Hanzo. He's got this system where you have to hit something in front of your real target. You have to hit a minion or you have to hit a wall. And some of my favorite moments are fighting someone in Worgen form, and then like the enemy runs away behind their gate, and I'll just E forward to pop into human form, and then toss a cocktail right at the gate, and it smacks the gate, and then the flames jet forward into the fog of war, and I just get that death notification. It's just so tremendously rewarding and very mechanically interesting as well.
He's another one where I may not be the best with him, but he's so fun to play. Just the amount of damage that you can get, the kind of like being that speedy kind of. There's always something to do with him, and this guy kind of helped train me for melee characters. I know you guys have talked about him being ranged, but I had so much fun playing Greymane. I actually contemplated putting him on my list, but when I was looking for an assassin to play, you guys suggested him, and I'll always thank you for that, because I've been playing him ever since, and I probably will never stop. Because I think you're right, Kevin. He was used a lot in pro play, and I think for good reason. And he is definitely something that, despite what the meta is, he's always going to be useful.
Yeah, because damage, sustain, and burst, and high mobility are just always going to be in high demand. His mobility is one of my favorite things. Is that he can both, at it from a distance, he can E to jump on someone and then Q to chase them, or if you need to escape, like if you're just laning in Worgen form and someone tries to gank you, you can use his swipe as a Worgen to gain a little bit of distance, then roll away with your E, and then just turn around and then throw a cocktail, all in this like one sleek movement where you feel like just like this lithe werewolf just running around and wreaking havoc. He's got that kind of he's got that kind of fantasy as well for me.
He's definitely a power fantasy character where you get to feel like, You know, like in some games where all the cool stuff happens in cutscenes that you can't control. Well, have I got a hero for you?
Yeah, so that's definitely why he lands as my number 4.